Hey there. Ready for a deep dive today?
Always ready.
We're going to be talking about timekeeping, specifically.
Ooh, fascinating.
Yeah, we're going all the way from like ancient sundials
Right.
to, the atomic clocks we have today.
Yeah.
And our guide for this deep dive is a book called Tock, The Epic History of Timekeeping.
Okay.
It's a pretty fun read.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
One thing that really struck me from the book is how timekeeping, went from this like almost cosmic guessing game in the ancient world
Right.
to like this incredibly precise science that pretty much dictates every aspect of our modern lives.
It's amazing to think about, really. I mean, if you tried to explain a Fitbit to someone
Right.
living in ancient Egypt,
Yeah,
they probably would think it was some kind of magical artifact or something.
totally. And speaking of ancient Egypt, the book talks about how, early civilizations were so connected to these like natural rhythms of nature using celestial events
Yeah.
to mark the passage of time.
It makes sense if you think about it. I mean, they didn't have, smartphones or anything like that.
Right.
So the rising and setting of the sun, the
Yeah.
phases of the moon, those were their indicators,
So that's what they were looking at. So like Stonehenge,
Exactly.
like those massive stone structures, they weren't just for show.
No, they were
Alright.
like giant calendars.
Wow.
Which I think really demonstrates just how invested they were
Yeah.
in trying to figure out, the rhythms of time.
Yeah, that's amazing. But I'm guessing there were some downsides to relying solely on the cosmos for timekeeping.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what if it's a cloudy day? Your whole schedule's thrown off.
Exactly. And I don't think calling in cloudy was really an option back then.
Yeah, probably not going to fly with the boss.
Right.
But here's what I find fascinating. We've gone from this world of, like, natural rhythms to one where we are completely obsessed with precision.
Yeah.
We're constantly bombarded with notifications, deadlines.
It's like a total 180.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've traded the sundial for the smartphone.
totally.
And yet, like you said, the pressure to be constantly on is just, it's intense.
It's huge. And the book even argues that this like hyper-awareness of time, this need to schedule every second of our day, is actually making us more stressed and anxious.
And the irony is almost painful. We're so focused on trying to, manage time that we've forgotten how to actually live in it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So how did we get here?
The good question.
Was it like a gradual shift, or was there like a defining moment in history that really tipped the scales?
Well, according to the book, the invention of the mechanical clock was a major turning point.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it sort of shifted timekeeping from this like public community-based activity to something more personal and individual.
Okay. So like before mechanical clocks, how did people in a community know what time it was? Did they just like shout across the fields to each other?
Not quite. The book talks about how cathedrals played a big role.
Oh.
So before everyone had a clock, the cathedrals served as the central timekeepers, and their bells would ring out to kind of, mark the hours for the entire community.
So it was like this giant citywide alarm clock.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing the invention of the mechanical clock changed things in a big way.
Oh, absolutely. It led to, a much more precise measurement of time, which then impacts everything,
Yeah.
work schedules, social interactions, everything.
And then, of course, we have the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And the book really emphasizes how that era solidified our modern relationship with time.
The Industrial Revolution was all about efficiency and productivity.
Right.
And so, suddenly precise timekeeping becomes crucial for factories to operate smoothly. Workers had to punch in and out, adhere to strict schedules, and that's really where the 9-to-5 workday is born.
It's amazing how something like as seemingly simple as a clock
Yeah.
could have such a profound impact
I-
on the structure of like society.
It really shows how deeply, timekeeping is intertwined with our social and economic systems.
That's a great point. And it's fascinating, because even in today's world of, remote work and flexible schedules, we're still largely bound by this like industrial model of time.
It's like the ghost of the Industrial Revolution still haunting our calendars.
It really is. But what if we could like hit the reset button?
Ooh.
What would a world without this hyper-precise timekeeping actually look like?
The book actually dives into that.
Really?
And it suggests it would be pure chaos.
Really? I mean, I understand we rely on schedules and everything, but total chaos. That seems a little dramatic, don't you think?
Think about it. GPS navigation failing.
Oh, yeah.
Stock markets crashing.
Wow.
Even, your internet connection relies on these precise time signals.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about the technological implications. But I guess beyond that, wouldn't it also fundamentally change, like, how we interact with the world?
Exactly. It's not just about missing a dentist appointment.
Right.
It would change our whole understanding of history and progress.
Yeah.
Even our perception of mortality would be different.
That's wild. That's a pretty profound thought.
Yeah.
But before we get, too existential, let's take a break and we'll come back and explore some of the more, quirky and surprising facts that TikTok unearthed about the history of timekeeping. Welcome back. I gotta say, I'm already looking at my watch a little differently now. But before the break, we were talking about how a world without timekeeping would be total chaos.
Yeah.
But the book also talks about some, lighter, more fun facts.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
About the history of time.
TikTok is full of all those little fun facts.
So, what's one fact that made you just go,
Okay. Wait, really?
Did you know that time zones, as we know them today, like the standardized time zones, weren't a thing until the late 19th century?
Wait, really? So before that, it was just every town for itself?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow. Imagine traveling by train back then and having to constantly adjust your watch because every town set its clocks based on, the position of the sun.
Oh my gosh.
It'd be a nightmare.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare, especially for something like train schedules.
Yeah, and I think it really highlights how timekeeping evolved not just technologically, but also socially and politically.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just about building a better clock. It was about figuring out systems that actually allowed societies to function.
It's like timekeeping went from a personal observation to a tool for large-scale coordination.
Exactly.
Okay, so standardized time zones.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Anything else in the book catch your eye?
Well, there's this description of the ancient Greek clepsydra. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, so it's basically a water clock.
Yeah, okay.
But instead of sand, like in an hourglass, it's water dripping out.
So it's like a fancy hourglass with a splash zone.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The book even jokes that, ancient philosophers probably got splashed a few times.
Trying to figure out what time it was.
It's funny to think about, how much time was lost just dealing with those little inconveniences.
Right.
But it also shows how inventive people were, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They are constantly trying to find new and better ways to measure time, even if it meant getting a little wet.
Exactly. And, that drive to innovate is really what led us to where we are today with, atomic clocks that are accurate to within a fraction of a second over millions of years.
It's crazy.
It really is.
The level of precision we have now.
Yeah, I know.
But it also kind of brings us back to that central paradox that the book highlights. The more we try to control time, the more it seems to control us.
It's like we're stuck in this loop, striving for accuracy and efficiency, but then we just become enslaved by the clock.
And we talked earlier about how our obsession with time is, linked to stress and anxiety.
Right.
And the book really dives deeper into that.
Arguing that this pressure to constantly optimize our time is actually making us less happy.
Yeah, there's a lot of research out there that backs that up.
Really?
Yeah, our brains aren't designed to operate in this, constant state of high alert.
Makes sense.
We need downtime.
Yeah.
We need, moments of unstructured time to think and reflect.
Yeah. I'm definitely guilty of trying to cram too much into my day, and then it usually backfires.
Right.
I end up more stressed.
Well, the book offers some practical advice, for combating this.
Okay.
One suggestion is to incorporate time blocking into your schedule.
So instead of just letting the day, run away from me, I should actually, block out specific times for tasks.
Yeah, and the key is to block out time not just for work stuff, but also for things that you enjoy, things that help you recharge.
So scheduling time for a walk or reading a book.
Yeah.
Or even just staring out the window and letting my mind wander.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. It's not about being a slave to the schedule. It's about using the schedule to create a life that feels more balanced.
And ultimately, that's really what TikTok is all about.
Yeah.
Encouraging us to reflect on our relationship with time, question our assumptions, and find a way to, live more mindfully.
That's well said. But before we wrap up this whole deep dive, the book leaves us with a final thought-provoking question that I think is really worth exploring. It asks, if time is truly our most valuable resource, why do we spend so much of it stressing about how little we have?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
It really makes you think about, like, what are we actually prioritizing?
It's like we're so focused on the finish line
Right.
that we forget to actually enjoy the race.
What if we could shift that perspective a little bit?
Yeah.
What if, instead of worrying about running out of time, we focused on creating more meaningful experiences within the time that we do have?
That's a great way to think about it. It's not about denying the limitations of time.
Right.
It's about choosing to focus on what we can control.
Exactly. How we spend it, who we spend it with.
The experiences we choose to prioritize.
Yeah. And maybe if we do that, we'll discover that time isn't the enemy, but actually our greatest ally.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and then come back and wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating world of timekeeping. Welcome back. It's been quite a journey today. We've gone from like ancient sundials to atomic clocks, from the Industrial Revolution to like what a world without time would even look like.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered. It really makes you think about time in a whole new way. You know, not just how we measure it, but how our relationship with time has really like shaped who we are.
Yeah. And one thing that really stood out to me is this idea from TikTok that time is both a constant and a construct.
Right.
It's like, on the one hand, it's this universal force that governs everything. But on the other hand, it's something that we, invented, divided, and measured to make sense of the world.
Yeah, it's a powerful duality. Like, we're bound by the laws of physics, yet we've created all these intricate systems to like quantify and control something that we can't actually hold.
It's like trying to capture water in your hands. You can hold it for a second, but it's constantly slipping away.
That's a really good analogy. And it kind of brings us back to that central question that TikTok keeps coming back to.
Yeah.
If time really is our most valuable resource, why are we spending so much of it worrying about how little we have?
I know. It's like we're so afraid of running out of time that we forget to actually live in it.
We're so busy focusing on the destination that we miss the journey.
Yeah. But what if we shifted our perspective a little bit? What if instead of viewing time as this like finite commodity, we saw it as like an opportunity, a blank canvas, something that we could use to create a life that's full of, purpose and joy.
It's like we go from being slaves to the clock to becoming, the architects of our own time.
Yeah, we choose how we spend it, who we spend it with, the things that we really want to prioritize.
It's not about pretending like time doesn't have limits.
Right.
It's about, realizing that we have more freedom than we think.
And I think that's really what TikTok was trying to tell us. It's not just a history book. It's like a call to action.
Totally. It's about remembering that we get to choose how we relate to time. And by doing that, we can, change our whole lives.
So as we wrap things up today,
I
want to leave our listeners with this thought. What if, instead of always trying to manage time, we focused on making time for things that really matter?
What if, instead of always racing against the clock, we allowed ourselves to just be present in each moment, to really enjoy the beauty of life happening all around us?
What if we embraced the abundance of time that we do have, not as something that we have to hoard and save, but as this infinite canvas where we can create a life that is, meaningful and joyful?
Well, we hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the world of timekeeping.
And remember, time is what you make of it.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.